Let me welcome you all to the third Sunday in May. Our featured person today is Jen Schoonover, who will be with a focus on truly early dances, as opposed to some of our previous activities that were early dances as represented in the RCDS published books. Before I start, I think there's a couple things I want to say. First of all, we are recording this. If you do not want to be on the recording but have a question, please just put it in the chat and I will read it out for you. Not mentioning names because I know some people would like to remain private. If you would like to speak up, that you are more than welcome to. So that's the recording. Also a heads up, my next door neighbors are running a fundraiser for somebody running for city council. They announced this 2 days ago. And among other things, they have a steel band. So I'm going to try to stay muted so that we don't have the steel band interrupting us. But this is just a little heads up. If you like steel band music, come to my neighbors. And I will be soliciting announcements for other activities at the end. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Jen.
All right. Well, great. Well, thanks very much. I want to thank you for being here today. And I want to thank Karen for hosting the third Sundays workshops for the Boston branch, the RSCDS Boston branch. It's been a nice way for us to keep some community and some interest going in Scottish country dancing, Scottish dancing, while we're not able to have big parties and dances at the moment. So I wanted to share some information or stories or dances from the repertoire of different dancing masters. So I have grown up, or I really started out Scottish dancing as a Scottish country dancer. I started doing Scottish dancing at all because there was a local Scottish country dance group that I went to and participated in. And over the course of my learning Scottish country dancing, I would sometimes hear teachers refer to the dancing masters, or even some of the things you see written by Miss Milligan would say the old traditional forms and things like that. And this got me kind of curious about, well, who are we talking about and who's out there? So I have been doing a bit of research into Scottish dancing and some of the roots of it or the history of it. And there were quite a lot of dancing masters in Scotland. I thought it would be interesting to share some of the repertoire from some of the Scottish country dance or Scottish dance masters. Some of them taught what they would call Scottish country dancing, and some of it maybe didn't use that name, but taught Scottish social dancing. Although really Scottish country dancing was a term pretty widely used. But it did look very different than the way it's practiced today. And I thought it might be fun to try out some of the different patterns and figures that we do know that these dancing masters taught, and also just to give a little information about them, because they were people. And they weren't just a group, and they certainly didn't teach all the same way. So today, people who want to teach Scottish country dancing have to take a test and have to give the right answers. In the 19th century, in the 1800s, that's not the case. That wasn't the case at all. Different dancing masters had sort of different niches, and that's what made them special. You know, this dancing master had a version of the dance they did this way, and this did it a little different. And it was, in a way, it was some job security too, because each of the dancing masters had their own little things that made them different from one another. So I thought it would be interesting to start with a dancing master who left a big mark on Scottish country dancing and the way we do dancing today. And that would be Joseph Lowe. So Joseph Lowe was one of several brothers who were dancing masters. And actually his father, I think it was John Lowe, had been a shoemaker who became a dancing master and created this family business of dancing masters. So he had 4 sons that became dancing masters. And they put out a guide about what to know about in dancing in 1831. And so maybe I'll start by just showing an image from their book. I don't have it on here. Well, I'll share it and then I'll move things around here. Cancel. So, sorry, let me pull this over. There we go. So here's the Lowe's Ball Conductor Guide. And this is a book that is published in 1831. All right, and it's published by the Messrs. Lowe, Joseph Lowe, John Lowe, George Lowe, maybe Robert, I want to say were the names. Don't quote me on that. But they put out a guide, and this was a book that had instructions for, first off, etiquette. So your dance lessons in the 19th century, the foundation of the dances that were taught and the classes, one of the most important things behind taking these classes had to do with etiquette and deportment, right? The way that we move through life says a lot about who we are and where we ought to be, right? And this was actually it was seen as a very important part of dance education. Education in general was highly valued, though dance education was highly valued in Scotland. And this was pretty much across social classes. There were different teachers somewhat for the different social classes, as we'll see, I think. But it was still widely valued. So here on the front page of the Lowe's Ball Conductor and Assembly Guide, we have some directions, and we also have the 5 positions. And as much as we can see them, this is a photocopy, and I'd like to thank, much of this talk I owe a lot to Matt Smeline, who is a friend of mine, co-author of a book. We've done some research together. He's also been really helpful in sharing his resources, and he has a copy of this that I'm showing you right now. So it's a photocopy, but we can see that the positions are as we know them today in Scottish dancing. So in ballet, these positions have changed, right? Second position, you have your weight shared on equally by both feet. In the Scottish world, we still have these, what we might call maybe regency positions or early dance positions, where in the second position, it's a weightless, it's a gesture. You're not putting the weight on the foot out there. So I like to show that just because that legacy is still part of what we think of as being Scottish. So I'll take that down. So one of the Lowe brothers, Joseph Lowe, got a very important job. So he was hired to teach dancing to the royal family of Victoria and Albert in the 1850s. And he took a journal. He kept a journal of his time working there. He saw this, I think. We don't know. I never talked to him, right? But we can assume, I think, that he thought it was an important time because he kept a journal of his work for the royal family, which is interesting to read. That book is available. You can find it and buy it or get it from a library, and you can read his reactions. There isn't as much dance detail as we might like, at least as I might like, but there are some things that we find out through the journal of Joseph Lowe. And one of them is what one of the royal family's favorite dances was, and it was this dance called the Lady of the Lake. So I will share this dance with you in a little bit. One of the things I'd also like to say is that dancing masters also taught something called calisthenics. All right, so I think this word still exists in English today, although we maybe don't use it so much. Maybe it was popular about 40, 30 years ago as a sort of an exercise form. But dancing masters of the 19th century, all of the ones that I'm talking about today or sharing about, they all taught something called calisthenics. And it was basically a training, or conditioning program that would be done in conjunction with dancing classes. So one of the things mentioned in the journal of Joseph Lowe is that he shared these exercises with what's called a chest expander. He would do these with the princesses, and maybe the princes as well. The princes were not as keen on solo dancing lessons. They did learn the fling, and they loved the Lady of the Lake, which when I show you the dance will maybe makes a lot of sense. But the female pupils learned a lot of solo dances. And so I'm going to show, we have these resistance bands that we use today, but really a chest expander would be something like this. I think that they had metal springs instead, right? And you would use them to basically build the muscles in the arms and in the upper body. And so dancing masters used equipment that we now use today, well, similar to what we use today. We today, when we use it, it's seen as a big innovation, like, oh, look what we can do now. But actually, dancing masters were thinking about this and doing this in the 19th century as well. It was kind of rad. What else was I going to say? In the book, the Lowe's assembly guy, or ball conductor, that I was just sharing a page from, they did include directions for the dance known as the Lady of the Lake. That was the two princes' favorite. It was their Balmoral favorite. It was the Prince of Wales and Prince Alfred's favorite. So maybe I'll just explain how that goes. In the ball conductor, it was considered an English country dance. So the Lowes make this distinction between English country dances and Scotch country dances. We don't really know what distinguishes them, or at least I don't really know. And if someone else does, you can let me know. But they listed English country dances, Scotch country dances, and Irish country dances. So Lady of the Lake was considered an English country dance in their guide. I think I can tell you how the figures go, or the formations go, and you'll be able to envision it pretty well. But then I'll also just maybe dance a couple rounds, and you can get up and try dancing a couple rounds if you want, or would like to try. So it begins with the first couple dancing down the middle and up. Okay? When the first couple comes to the top, then they're going to continue to face up. The second couple is going to come in and face the first couple. So the second formation is that the first couple is going to go down the middle backwards while the second couple advances towards them. And then they go back up to the top like that as well. So there's two down the middles and up. The first one, the first couple faces down, turns and comes back up. For the second one, the first couple goes down backwards while the second goes forwards, and then the second couple comes up backwards while the first couple comes up forwards. And at the end of that, they do a poussette. Now, for Scottish country dancers today, we have to translate the poussette that we have learned, or whatever version of the Scottish country dance poussette you've learned, is going to be different than this one. All right, so the poussette that they did at that time would have been what they call waltzing round, right? It's not in waltz time, but it's basically a two-step turn with a partner, right? And in this poussette, because the couples have progressed at the end of going down the middle and up together, you go once round one another, and that's the end of your poussette, right? And then you could begin it again. All right, so why don't if you're going to dance through it or walk through it, you can stand up and do it with me. All right, so say I will be first woman, that'll be first man. We would go down the center and up. Would we do skip change of step? I don't think so. We might have done a chassé, which is sort of a 1, 2, 3, but no hopping. Okay, so it would have the step together step. There wouldn't be a hop. There might have been a lilt, like basically step together step, and step together, step and step. This is the Victorian age, right? A thing I can say about Joseph Lowe is that he also taught some lessons to Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria showed him some of the steps that she had learned before he had been her dancing master. He said that they were indeed Scotch steps, but they were very masculine and very rough. And he would suggest that she try some other steps that he had to teach her that were a little more feminine and smoother. And that just makes me so happy because it's Joseph Lowe teaching Victoria how to be more Victorian. So anyways, in that effort, we can think about keeping a smooth step. You go down the middle, keeping very little bounce, and you go back up. First couple then would stay facing up. Second couple would come into face. We'd go back down. It's a good chance you wouldn't do your chassé backwards, so maybe this was walking, right? And then at the end of that, we'd have a poussette going around in a little two-step, right? At this time, it was likely ballroom hold. The waltz had already hit, and the waltz hold was pretty well accepted. So it was probably, or a waltz hold is a good choice for this. So maybe I'll play this music and just now this recording, oops, excuse me, let me hold off there. There's not an introduction, but the recording is by Green Ginger. It's a band I had always sort of thought of as a Scottish country dance band, and is, but they've been focusing on Regency music. So this comes from a bunch of, or a recording, an album, except for it's online or digital, of Regency style music, or appropriate for Regency dancing. In the document that Karen had shared too, there's a link to this site if you're interested in the recording. Also on their site, they list a couple of other sets of figures for this dance. But so once again, Lady of the Lake is going to go first couple down the middle and up, second and first couple sort of face to face down the middle and up, and then a poussette. So I'll start it, and if I'll take this with me. So if you get in your starting position, if you are going to dance with me.
So Jen, this is
Right,
a
yes.
24 bar dance. This is a 24 bar dance.
It is a 24 bar dance.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. So, ready to go down the middle. Here we go. And back again. First couple, second couple, face to face, right? Oh, there was, actually, I'm wrong. Hang on, pardon me, excuse me. There was an introduction. So let me take it back again, and we will wait out the first figure. I was wrong about that. Some of these don't, but this one does. So there's an intro. You ready? First couple, down the center. Up again. First couple, second couple, face to face. Through. All right, so yeah, it was a 24 bar dance. And again, the styling that I'm doing might not be super specific to the time, but just to show, give a sense of a different approach. One of the dances that Joseph Lowe signified as a Scottish country dance is a dance known as Rachel Ray. So I was playing the music for Rachel Ray earlier, and I wanted to share it because it was John Lowe, who was the shoemaker earlier, that Bill rightly said, oh, interesting that a shoemaker becomes a dancing master. You have like a captive audience. Yes, when you started to take dancing lessons, it was expected that you would have dancing shoes and white gloves, right, to wear to your dancing classes. So yes, a good fit of occupations. But the tune Rachel Ray has been attributed to that same man, John Lowe. Okay, so the music that I have for it is really, yes, a good fit of shoes, right? Good, making a good dance shoe there. So let me see. The way they have the dance, or they explain the dance for Rachel Ray, is different. So in the RSCDS canon or repertoire books, Rachel Ray is a 24-bar dance. The Lowe's, this one is more likely a 32-bar dance, although the music that I have is not really perfect dancing music for it. I'm going to read the figures for it. I'm pulling it up. I'm not sharing them with you, but the figures are included in the document that you can download from the chat. Okay, so the Scotch Country Dance, Rachel Ray, it's 4 hands across, down the middle, up again, lead out to the sides, 3 and 3 in line, so the lady between the 2 gentlemen and the gentleman between the 2 ladies, back again, and poussette with the top couple. All right, so that set, there's a little bit of question. When you're looking at descriptions like that, the person reading it has to interpret, right? Do I want to fit this into a 32-bar dance? We might be able to fit it into a shorter dance. You might be able to make it be a 24-bar. But maybe just 8 bars for everything might make sense too. So the way that I think we'll try it today, I'll try it as a 32-bar dance. The music I have is probably played about half time, half speed from what you might play it for dancing, but the musicians among you here, you can let me know what you think. So the music, let me play that. I had played that a little bit earlier as well. It's a very kind of contemplative version of Rachel Ray. This was recorded by Tony Cuff, a musician from Scotland who lived in Massachusetts, who lived here for some time. He died at quite a young age and had made a recording of this tune that was published posthumously. It's really lovely. It's a very touching track. I'm not sure it's perfect for a Scottish country dance, but at least it's the tune. And we might consider, let's just give it a listen first. You could have step together, step, step together, step, step together, perhaps. So you might be able to do a little gentle chassé to that timing. And we could try it as a 4 hands across. Say we do a right, hands across and left. We have a 1, 2, 3, and 4, and take it back. All right. Right? First couple's going to go down the middle. When that first couple comes up, they're going to switch sides, right? And go to opposite sides. A lead out the side might not take 4 bars to go up, but we're going to take it now. You come back to your sides, and then the top 2 couples take a poussette. So it doesn't matter which side of the dance you're on to begin that. You fudge it when you're doing these dances around. So we go through that one more time. So let's have a right hands across. You can do this walking too, if you really like it that way, and back. Top couple would go down the center, right? Coming back up, lady would be crossed over to the gent side, so you're on opposite sides. You take hands and walk out. Turn around and come on back to the line. And then couples 1 and 2 would take a little poussette around, but they'd already progressed, so it's once round, right? And we'd start over. So and that again, I'm not sure that the music would be played that slowly. Maybe it would be played double time to have more of sort of a real up-tempo feeling. But so I spent a lot of time on Joseph Lowe, so maybe we could move on to another dancing master who also had rather a high stature. So Joseph Lowe was, the Lowe brothers were trying to put themselves at the top of the profession, and when, they made a ball guide, Joseph Lowe actually married someone from a prominent family of dancing masters from England, the Eager family, and he also sort of had a lot of family connections to be well placed, to be a well-respected dancing master. Dancy Neal is the next person that I'm going to talk about. And Dancy Neal had studied dance teaching and playing with Joseph Lowe. Excuse me, it's John Lowe. Let me get my notes here. John Lowe. Yeah, so not Joseph Lowe, but another one of the brothers, John Lowe. Let me share my screen and I'll pull up some images of Dancy Neal. Cancel, I keep doing that. So here I'm going to share this full screen. All right, so here we have a picture of Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon and David Bowes-Lyon. Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon is better known as Queen Mother, right? And then her brother, Sir David Bowes-Lyon, as children. And I guess they had studied with Dancy Neal, James Neal. Dancy was this, it was like this honorific title for dancing masters that became used in Scotland, and particularly, well, northern or at least eastern Scotland. You see it a lot. So here he is with his fiddle and his bow. That's another thing to understand, is that dancing masters, a lot of them played the fiddle and provided their own accompaniment. It's a smart move as a dancing teacher to have your music with you, have portable music, right? But also, it was part of the profession and a skill that we tend to, I shouldn't say tend, but can separate out now. That wasn't so much at that time. So the music and dancing were provided by the same teacher in a lot of cases. So Dancy Neal here is in a suit. He's wearing dress shoes, a black jacket, black trousers. And that's what he wore for most of his dancing classes. Let me see if I can get the other picture. It's the same cast of characters. It's just a slightly different pose. And you can see a little bit more of the shoes and maybe more of the fiddle too, right? So the children are here dressed for a performance, a showing of the dance they'd worked on. I don't know what that dance would have been, but it looks like maybe it was a pas de deux, right? That they'd be dancing together in fancy costume. One of the things that was noted, that the Queen Mother noted about Dancy Neal, or maybe it wasn't her, but it's something I've heard about him, is that the one side of his beard was worn off. So he had a very bushy beard, but because he played the fiddle so much, the fiddle tended to wear off the beard. So he was rather an imposing presence with that. So I'll take that down. That's a picture of Dancy Neal. That's in the National Portrait Gallery in London, or based there. So they have that image. So I just shared it through Safari. You can go there and look at it in more detail if you'd like. So Dancy Neal, his repertoire of dances, the information I'm going to share now is from a terrific book on dancing, with research on dancing, traditional dancing in Scotland, by Thomas and Joan Flett. They recorded his repertoire, and actually I'll just read a little bit of what they wrote about him. Mr. Neal regarded himself primarily as a teacher of Highland dancing, and the Scotch, we know as foursome reel. the reel of Tulloch, and in more recent years, the Eidsum reel, because the Eidsum reel came up in the late 1800s. It became danced, I think, at the Northern Meeting, Highland Games that became sort of a gathering point for a lot of dancing masters to share material, information about material, learn some new things. So the Eidsum reel is a later dance, but that also came to figure prominently in his lessons. So he evolved. He didn't always teach the same repertoire. In spite of this, he wore a kilt whilst teaching only when he gave private lessons at Blair Castle. His normal dress for his classes consisted of a black jacket and black striped trousers and patent leather dancing shoes. All right, never at any time did he wear Highland dancing shoes, nor were those worn by his pupils. That's something that we do today. The shoes we wear really affect what we can do with our feet. When we think we would have had to do these dances in shoes that had little heels, right, it becomes a different style. It really affects the way we dance, right? Anyway, his small repertoire of country dances was Petronella, Flowers of Edinburgh, Triumph, the Haymaker's Jig, Rory O'More, Strip the Willow, Bruin's Reel, which is what we'll do in just a minute, Speed the Plow, and Jackie Tar. He also had some other social dances that you'll be able to see in the shared document. So, Dancy Neal taught Bruin's Reel. That's kind of how the dance is known, maybe more popularly in Angus. In Scotland, we might call it more regularly Duke of Perth here, or at least that's the label that RSCDS tends to give for it. The Duke of Perth, as it was taught, is pretty similar to the way we know it, with a couple of important differences. All right, dancing masters would, this dance was taught with elbow holds, right? So when you would turn your partner, when you would turn your corners, you would, what I think of as in like square dance in a swing, right? You would hook arms. So for the Duke of Perth, you'd turn your partner around by the right with your elbow, right? Cast off. Oh, there's a question. Well, I'll get to the question in just a second. You cast off, you turn your partner by the left elbow, face your first corners. You do corner, partner, giving elbow holds, right? And then face your first corner again. You have set to and turn your corners, but the way it was done was, it doesn't say with two hands, and you definitely would not have done a pas de basque around. So you'd set to your first corner and turn them to face your second corner, set to your second corner, turn them to face, and you'd have reels of three on the sides. So if you've done a lot of Scottish country dancing, those figures sound really familiar. They are the same figures, but they're done in just a different style than we might do. Let me check the question. The one place that Dancy Neal wore a kilt was in Scotland, but it was at Blair Castle. So it was his like highest paying employer, or his highest status employer. They asked that he wear a kilt to the private lessons, and he did. But everywhere else, he wore trousers. And another point I should say about dancing masters is that they were super fit. Most of them rode on bicycles to do their circuits of teaching, right? So a dancing master would have a violin in a pack or however strapped on to themselves. One of the other dancing masters, Dancy Myron, would wear a big cape that would put the violin underneath in case it would start to rain. The violin would be protected. So, but they would cycle to the places where they would be teaching and then cycle back. So, you know, we drive in our cars. We have it kind of easy if we have jobs that we take on and show up to places. A lot of times dancing masters were on bicycles. The tempo would be different for an elbow hold. Maybe yes and maybe no. I'm going to play. And so, another thing. Steps were different. Yes. Again, and Dancy Neal we have quite a bit. So if you read traditional dancing in Scotland, some of the descendants of Dancy Neal had very clear depictions of that. He definitely taught a chassé. You did not hop between your steps, right? So when if you're thinking of a skip change of step, we always teach hop, step, close, step, hop, step, close, step. There's no hop, right? So you'd have step, close, step, ends. There might be a little lilt, like a bending of the leg. The idea was not to go up and down super much. It was to keep it smooth. I'm even turning out. I think that the amount of turnout that we do today was probably not as exaggerated as it is today in those times. So I have two different recordings of Duke of Perth, right, or Brunsreel. The first one is an older recording, and I thought we might, if you would like to try, I'll play it and you could try walking it through. This is a bummer to walk through on your own, but I'll try it and see what you think. This first player is the Scottish Country Dance, Players. So it's an earlier recording and it's pretty zippy, so be ready. All right, here we go. Right, so cast it off, right elbow. Turn first corner, turn your partner. Turn second corner, and your partner, right? Set to your first corner, and turn. Set to your second corner, right? And turn. And reel on the side. We barely have time to do chassés in that. Maybe. Alright. So that's that. That's a faster tempo. I thought I'd play one at regular tempo. Or I say regular. That's because of my bias, what I'm used to, right? But a contemporary tempo. So I'm going to play music by Terp Sikri, Elka Baker, and Liz Donaldson, playing the Duke of Perth. My opinion, I think elbow holds could help us with corner partner in general. I think it's a really difficult figure to dance in quick time in Scottish country dancing. Before we do that, I just saw that there was a comment, and I'm just going to pull it up. Okay, 3/4 of the turn between first and second corners. I'm not sure, or maybe you're checking out the directions here. I'm going to put on the quicker time. You mean between setting. This is if that's the text that I included in the document is from the Flett book. So I didn't write the notes for that. It comes directly from traditional dancing in Scotland. At the end of the corner partner, you have a choice about whether you turn a 1/4 of a turn, is it, or 1 1/4. Do I have the right spot? Oh no, that's the next dance. Is that true? Anyways, no, that's. Let me just check my notes here. I'm just going to go back and check.
He asked about bars 11 and 12.
11 and 12. So, okay, so, right, okay. Yeah, so that's turning your second corner, yeah? No.
Turning your partner.
Turning your partner. It's turning your partner. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I think when you're coming into it, you're turning your here rather than taking it up and down. You're just going to take it here. I don't know. That makes pretty much a full turn. Again, these are the Flett's notes. But I think that, I don't know, it might also mean you don't come in the middle, back to back, to set to your second corner. They were very specific. The Fletts, when they wrote down positions of the feet, they were really trying to do careful field work. They did not want to see the dancing represented as like the same, right? They wanted to show that there were a lot of variants. People did things in different and specific ways. So perhaps that 3/4 of a turn, I don't know, maybe you come in here. I don't know that I have the answer to that. Maybe you let go soon before you went on to your second corner. I'll have to keep thinking about that. The flets were collecting in the 1950s, primarily. Okay, so, and one thing I could say about most of that research or done in the field was done by Thomas Flett, who was also a mathematician, and he would take his summers and go to Scotland and talk to people and try to learn what he could from people who knew these dances from living memory. He was really on a mission to learn these things and document it, like notate it. We owe so much to him and to his wife Joan, who did the other side of it. She did a lot of the historical research in the books. They were quite the team. Their book is so useful. I'm not sure I can solve that answer or give an answer for that question today. But let's try it to the slower tempo, and I'll think about it as we go. Okay, so I'm going to play contemporary dance tempo for Duke of Perth, and we'll try it that way. And again, for me, this is theoretical. I don't have a partner I'm dancing with, and it might make a big difference. I'm just guessing, right? So Duke of Perth, contemporary tempo. Now here, this is a quarter turn. And turning. So this walk, if you're going to walk this, it almost feels like you got to draw it out, right? So that one, the contemporary tempo really accommodates our skip change a step. It gives a wonderful lift and drive to it, but if we were to try walking it or to try the chasse, it might feel a little held back, I think. Anyway, that's a theory. So that was Dancy Neal. The efforts of continuing on here, because I see we've got 15 minutes to go, I will move on to David Anderson. So Dancy Neal, actually, let me, before I go on, say Joseph Lowe was based in Edinburgh, but really his brothers worked across Scotland, all over. Dancy Neal was based in Forfar, all right. David Anderson, who I'm going to go on to next, is from Dundee. And David Anderson, I'm going to share a very exciting picture of him from his from his ballroom guide. Yes, there he is, David Anderson. And David Anderson's 15,000. This ballroom guide was printed many, many times, and there were different editions of it. The earlier ones, anyone who's interested in percussive dancing, which I am in that, his earlier ones are super useful because they describe tripling, they describe percussive footwork. Another thing that Anderson did was try to give tuition in the art of dancing without the use of French terms. So the chasse, right, that I was mentioning that Dancy Neal would have taught, the French was like a language that showed it just signified dancing, or was a signifier for dancing, right? So here's David Anderson had a different approach and was maybe trying to spread dance a little bit more. He wasn't aiming for the upper echelons. He was aiming for a lot of people, for a really wide social net, right? So David Anderson, what I like he also lists a lot of dances. A lot of the dances he lists have the same figures and formations that are listed in the Lowe's Assembly Guide of 1831. So it's interesting to see a common reach of what some dances signified between those guidebooks. That said, there was also like wild plagiarism among dancing masters and dance guides predating the 1800s, so there might have been some of that involved too. I don't know. It's hard to pull that out. But one of the dances David Anderson lists in his ballroom guide is a dance called the Dashing White Sergeant. All right, and I'm going to just say through the figures that he lists for them. First lady and gentleman go across, change places, and pass around the second couple. Right? Then they turn with the right hand, stopping between the second couple. So I think in Scottish country dance terms today, that would be cross by the right, cast off one place, turn by the right up to end between the twos. Okay? The four form a line and advance and retire. The four form a line and advance and retire. Again, this is interpretation. This would be my guess, but I would be guessing they would be dancing towards the music and away from the music. Now, would they go advance for two, retire for two, and repeat that? Or would they advance for four and retire for four? I don't know. In my house, I might do advance for two, retire for two twice. They then dance or turn and advance down the middle, right? So that's giving us another sense of like, well, what does he mean advance? Advance down the center and up, and the two couples poussette, right? So that's that same poussette, the turning poussette, the two-step ballroom hold poussette, but in this Dashing White Sergeant, right? First couple cross, cast, turn by the right up between the twos. Advance towards the music, retire. Let's say do it twice. Everyone down the middle and up and poussette. All right. Why don't I play some Dashing White Sergeant and we'll try that out. Okay, this is William Hanna. Music by William Hanna and his band. This is the one that doesn't have, excuse me, this is the one with no intro. So let me bring up the volume and I'll take it over again and we'll just be ready to cross and cast. Above, right, and you poussette around one another. And again, a non-progressive poussette as you start. Progressed. There you go. Okay, so that was David Anderson's Dashing White Sergeant. However, in David Anderson's ballroom guide, there's a dance called La Danse Florence. And I'm going to just read through the figures of that and see what you think about that. It's a real-time dance. Each gentleman have two lady partners and stand 3 and 3 facing face to face. Top gent stand at top with partners facing bottom of hall. Next gent stand facing top gent with partners. Next gent with partners stand back to back with second gent. Next gent stand facing third gent with partners. All right, so all the same down the hall as the dance is done up and down the hall. The three, now I have a typo in my document, are facing top gent, right, or who are facing top gent have to come out and turn around, all right? So we get a sense of hopefully how this is going. I'm going to read the figures, all right? So 3 facing 3, all commence 6 hands round to places. Each gent set and turn partner on right hand, 4 bars of music, then set and turn partner on left hand, 4 bars of music, and reel of 3 with left hand partner and the lady opposite, which brings all in their own places. 3 and 3 join hands, advance and retire. Each 3 facing bottom hold up arms, hand join, and the 3 facing top pass through and begin with the next 3. All right, so this dance really resembles, in some ways, the Dashing White Sergeant we know in the RCDS or in the Cayley dance world. It's a little different, I think. Although I do think, I don't know if the RSCDS attributes it to Anderson in his ballroom guide or not. I'm not sure. But I'm not sure it's actually 100% the same dance. So I thought maybe I would be first gent facing up the hall. And you can try that with me if you would like. It says circle round to places. Question is it circle round and back? I think that's a judgment call. We would have to interpret it and decide it. If we wanted it to be like Scottish country dancing today, we might do round and back. If we weren't so concerned about it, we might not do a galloping move. We might actually turn and walk 2, 3, right? Walk it once round and be ready to go. That could work too. So there's a little choice. There's always interpretations when we're working with material like this. We're making some guesses, maybe some educated guesses, right? You turn, first gent would turn and set to the right hand partner and turn that person once round. They would turn, right, to the left hand partner and turn them once round. Because the next thing they say is to reel with the left hand person and the opposite. I'm going to suggest turn this right hand, right? And then be ready to go and give a left shoulder to that person on the side. So rather than do it with your original partner, you're doing it with your partners on the side. You come back, you have your advance, you retire, and let's say I was at the bottom of the hall, they're at the top of the hall, so I'm going to go under the arches coming at me. All right, so why don't we just try to walk through that one. That's the La Danse Florence, but we're going to do it to the Dashing White Sergeant also. So I'll just start that up again. Oops, sorry, I have it paused here. Let me, oh, no, I pushed the wrong one. There we go. Okay, so going around, I'm just going to do one circle round. Set to the right hand person and turn. Set to the right hand person. You turn by the right. Ready to give the left to the opposite partner over here in that line, right? We're going to come back in here, be ready in our line, advance and retire, and then we're going under the arches. So, and maybe it's, again, there's some questions, like when you're interpreting it, there's a Swedish dance. Aha, yeah. There is a lot of overlap here. So, with the opposite, yes. There's a dance in the RSCDS canon too that has a reel on the sides in a 3 facing 3 or something like that too. But anyways, I got 5 minutes left, so I better move on to Dancy Reed. Because I even have video footage of Dancy Reed that I'd love to share. Dancy Reed was a student of Dancy Neal and David Anderson. So Dancy Reed studied with both of them, although the Flets see Dancy Reed as a successor to Dancy Neal, because he did learn a lot, or sort of maybe was in a more of an apprentice sort of situation with him. Let me share the footage of Dancy Neal teach. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to show a photo of him. Let me do that. Cancel. Rats. So here's a nice picture of Dancy Reed. And again, I want to thank Matt Smoline for sharing. This is a draft of a manuscript he's working on for publication. This is a picture of Dancy Reed with his fiddle, but here he is in his kilt. Yeah. So, and we will be seeing him dancing in his kilt at St. Andrews. So let me pull that up. So he did teach at a Scottish Country Dance Society summer school in the 30s, as will be noted in the video that we watch shortly. And here it is. All right, so I will play this. This is a silent film, so if you don't hear anything, don't be surprised. There he is, playing in Padabas, in setting, or whatever you want to call it. And there's everybody dancing, and he's showing a fling step, right? Or a Strathspey setting step. And there's his balance. So the way we do these balances today, very extended, it's very different than how Dancy Reed taught it, right? All right, so here he's teaching another real-time step. He's teaching it slowly right now. Now he's speeding it up. Nope, start again. All right, so I'm going to stop that there. This is, all of this footage is from a film that was taken by Ian C.B. Jameson in the 30s. He was an early member of the Scottish Country Dance Society that left the society kind of early on, but any of the dances you see in the RSCDS books that say collected in the borders would have come from him. He actually did field work, which was unusual for in the Scottish Country Dance Society. So, got you. It's nice to see. So Robert said Stuart Smith used to dance with Dancy Reed, and Stuart had been from Fife. I think that it's interesting to think of those legacies still coming down through the teaching of different dancers to us today. There's this beautiful passing on of tradition that dancing masters are all about, right? So the dance I thought I would share from Rory O'Moore was collected by Matt Smeline from he did field work in Angus, and he learned this version at the Murrows, which is just north of Dundee. I think I have that noted in the notes. You can also see more of Dancy Reed's repertoire there. All right, but the Rory O'Moore that Dancy Reed taught was a little different than the RSCDS. It still has the arches that are infamous in that dance, but instead of advance and retire at the beginning, you set twice. You take hands on the sides and you set twice, and then you have the arches. Just to explain the arches, right? If you're coming from the gentleman's side, the arch is made on the gentleman's side, the ladies come here, but then there's another arch. The second couple always turns the first couple under to their new place, okay? So you'd have set on the side, and Dancy Reed and his descendants they had an observation that the jeté was only done by people who didn't know how to dance. So when you're doing setting in this, don't do a jeté. All right, so you have set and set and set and set twice. Then we're going to have the arches. Women go under an arch made by the men, and the second couple turn the first couple under to second place. Repeat it, set twice. And this time from the gentleman's side, women make the arch, and the first lady gets turned under. Top couple, first couple goes down the center, comes up into second place, so the two step up, and we have an old style poussette. So that's a very common thread running through these Scottish dances. All right. Yeah, so as Karen mentioned, the RSCDS version was done in a previous Third Sunday workshop, so we thought we'd follow it up with this. I'll play the music for it, and we'll just try to dance it through, and then we can just chill and chat. I had wanted to play old style music. I'll just briefly play a recording by William and Ian Powery that was available online. It has a skip in it, so we can't really dance to it, but I just wanted to play it just for a sense of the texture of the music. There's the skip. So anyways, just to give a feel of that. But I have a recording of Rory O'Moore made by Lissa Schneckenberger, who's a local fiddler. This is really done for more of a contra setting, but it works nicely. It's a beautiful depiction of it. So we'll give it a try. Okay, so whatever side you want to be on, it's going to start with set twice. And then ladies go under the arches lead by first and second men. So we have 1, 2, and set, and go under the arches, and second couple turns, the first couple under, and set, the arches, and then first couple goes down the middle, comes up to second place, stays in the center, second couple comes in, we have a blue set. So that's Nancy Reed's version of Rory O'More. And since we're at 4:02, I think I'll stop there. But I did create this little bit of notes just to share with everyone. I relied a lot with this information on the book Traditional Dancing in Scotland, written again by Tom and Joan Flett, plus some resources shared with me by Matt Smeline, so I wanted to thank them. And I thought, there's a lot of folks here who are savvy about dancing, who have interest in Regency dancing, other styles, and that I'd open things up and we could chat and bring up ideas, questions, as you like.
First, let me thank you so much, Jen, and I'm going to clap for everybody who really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Oh,
in case people have to run off, I wanted to make sure we all got to
sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to I want to thank you for being here. It's an area I'm super interested in, and I appreciate your being here and just, being interested in it too.
I would like to make a comment here.
Yes.
I can remember back in the late 40s doing the Duke of Perth with the elbows.
Yes.
And with that turn and everything else. And oftentimes we called it the London way of doing it, because oftentimes it was the London branch people that were doing that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done it both ways.
Gotcha. So I feel that the London branch, some of the things that the Scottish Country Dance Society was starting to standardize and change, the London branch kind of held on to some of those long.
They did.
Yeah.
And when you played the Scottish Country Dance players, I started to giggle to myself because I used all that stuff. And I've got a couple of William Hanna's on another CD, not a dance CD, but on another one.
Uh-huh.
And it, again, the speed is there.
Yes.
And it's sort of interesting to look back at some of this stuff. And I can remember doing a lot of it. And of course, I did meet the Fletts because they belonged to the Waverley Scottish Society. And so they were always at the New Year balls and everything else. And my cousin knew them very well. And so I'm sort of familiar with them because one of the brothers, I've forgotten which one it is the one that didn't do all the traveling. He was a piper. So he got involved from that point of view. But it's that's a piece from my history.
Yeah.
Some of it makes a lot of sense because I've done it some of this way. But one thing about that turning corner and turning partner, but in what's the one in book 2, the Strathspey, where you turn your first corner and pass your partner, turn your second corner and pass your partner, left shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Like down side.
The original ways of doing it, the corner partner.
That's a good point. That solves that problem, doesn't it?
Yeah. But that works.
Yeah. Sorry. We're talking over one another in Zoom, Janetta. Let me let you talk.
Yeah, but some of those things do resonate with my early learning in the 40s and 50s.
That's great. Again, I think there's that lineage of things being passed on through dancers, but it's ephemeral. It's the things that get written down sometimes get emphasized because they have endured, but if we share the ideas from person to person, they can still live on, which is pretty amazing. One of the things I didn't talk about, I didn't teach any Strathspeys. Strathspeys were not as common so far as out of the dances remembered from living memory, there were not so many of them. They were more of an exception. They're awesome, but they're more of an exception. And so that is something that's really become promoted by the RSCDS.
Oh, yeah. The one I'm thinking of is Delvinside.
Yes, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A good one for social distancing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So
When
it's
we
nice
were
to know.
dancing in England in the fall of 19 and also the fall of 2000,
Mhm.
we danced with a number of folks from the London group. And I'll second what Janetta was saying. They almost always did an elbow turn. And if not an elbow, it was a tullock turn, but rarely was it hands.
Mhm.
I think the default
Absolutely
was
right.
really elbow.
Yeah.
They're still doing it.
Now,
And
I can understand why a physical education teacher wanted to take that out of the repertoire. People get close. It's like, okay, you're going to put some distance between them. But actually, if you do the elbow, it's really a lot better for the body, for the alignment of the middle body. I think there's something you have to be a super really good dancer to be able to do the hand turn. Whereas with the elbow turn, it's a little safer, and the turn, like there's you lose something when you don't use the elbow turn. It's nice to see that it still lives on, Yeah.
Back in the 80s, I went and danced with the Berkhamsted group. And one of the fellows asked me to do Duke of Perth. And I said, which way are you going to do it? He did it the London way. I said, okay. And he was surprised because having come from the States, he didn't realize that I had my background. So it was really quite funny.
Right, you were in on it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Nice.
These experiences are really fun to look back on.
Good. Yeah.
Many dances from the north of England and down the middle and up and poke around, they called it. And that poke around was exactly the poussette you were showing us. Usually it was just that way. You'd go back to second place and go once around, but sometimes you go back to first place and then go 1.5 times around.
Yes. Yeah. So it was flexible. It was a flexible formation. Whereas, like, as the dancer, if you know you needed to end up progressed, you just make it happen. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty awesome, right? Yeah. Yep. And it makes sense. We see that border there as distinguishing two different places, but like that's kind of a new concept. If you go back 200 years, was there a wall there? No. People were just sharing stuff, and yes, that was probably a commonly shared social dance, pattern throughout there. Yeah.
And you did Rory O'More, which is one that was always on our program. It was a very popular dance in the late 40s, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, I mean, so in the Fletz book, they actually detail dancing masters' repertoires. You can see sort of what they taught, and Rory O'More is there. It's across the board, as well as Petronella and Flowers of Edinburgh. Like there's a couple you're like, yeah, they stand out to you, because you're like, oh yeah, were they all done the same way? That's a question.
No,
There were definitely you can't say that dancing was done all the same way across Scotland. It didn't really work that way. The RSCDS in a way is trying to make that happen, and there's something to be said for that, and then everyone can dance together. But the regional styles kind of keep you flexible. If you learn one way and learn another way, you're able to speak a couple different languages, right? So yeah, so there's a sharing here. That someone didn't know about the ballroom style poussette until one night at Cayley in Manchester. Dudley Loughman, well-known caller, was there, and when the dance called for a poussette, he grabbed his partner and began the closed position. Immediately, the teacher stopped everything and put him in his place, saying he was not doing the figure correctly. Well, I guess for him he was. So that's funny. That's a great story.
One slightly unusual thing about Rory O'More, including the RSCDS version, is women make an arch. That's kind of rare. Usually when there's an arch figure, like the twos make it and the ones go under, or the men make it and the ladies go under. It's kind of unusual for the ladies to make an arch, but it happens in that dance.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's interesting to think about, you know, and one of the things that I didn't really talk about very much are the changing styles of clothes. You know, today we don't mind getting sweaty, jumping up and down, you know, we'll just take the clothes off and wash them when we're done. But in the 1800s, it was a different thing. It was a big deal to have to clean your clothes and wash them out, right? So it wasn't a goal to go and get your workout. It was a goal to like stay smooth and, you know, so would women's outfits be okay for an arch is an interesting question. Like how high could they lift their arms in the clothes they had on could be a factor that either influences or prohibits that. It's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah.
Well, and in periods when ladies' dresses were very large, they couldn't get too close to each other. I mean, there was presumably dancing was very different depending on
could be right. I mean, in the
size of the clothes.
Right. You know, in the middle of the 19th century, right? You did get some hoops, I guess. I don't know how widespread they were, but yeah, that definitely is going to need to be a big place you're in. But, you know, in the early part of that century, that's quite very loose-fitting stuff, or, you know, like very free. You had more range of motion. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the dance style probably evolved, you know, as it went, right? I don't know. Says me. It's a guess. We're all just making educated guesses, right? So.
Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you, Jen, again so much. This has been great fun.
Great, thank you so much for being here. It's really great to see you here, and thanks for exploring these old things.
Enjoyed it. Bye. Bye, everybody.